Give me Miles' overall status as a guy who, always seems to get hurt. And the Eagles at the running back position, not a position of great depth here. When I say depth, I mean just at 85 guys. You can have guys that are in camp, going to be able to play. Huntley as many carries as he got in the first preseason game. Are the Eagles right now staffed well enough at the running back position in your eyes? And good morning, Birds Insiders. Appreciate you're up and at it as early as we are here on Birds 365. You got your Mac guys, Jody McDonald, with my partner, John McMullen, ready to talk Eagles football with you for the next couple hours. J-Mac, we kind of speculated yesterday the all-important cut from 90 down to 85 that may just shape the fates and fortunes of the Eagles season. All right, maybe not. We're just kidding here. But they did cut 3 more guys. No great surprises. When you heard the name, what was the first thing you thought?
First thing I thought was everybody was waived injured. So that led me to believe the decision was, okay, if you can't help us get through the preseason game on Sunday, we're going to move on from you early. They just want bodies for that preseason game after the starters get their work in practice and the joint practices with Cleveland. So, I don't necessarily think it was, okay, who was the worst players as much as who was the healthiest at the back end of the roster. And we're going to keep the healthiest.
Agree on all fronts. And much like the player that the Eagles had previously cut, when you're released with an injury designation, if no one claimed you, then you can bring them back onto your roster on the injured list. So you can expand past the normal numbers, which is playing kind of a roster loophole game, which is within the rules, so more power to them if that's the case. Are there any guys that, of the 3, Lenore, Maiden, and who am I missing?
Jimmy Moreland.
Do you think any of the 3 will be those type of players where the Eagles will keep around, or do you think there'll be a settlement and those guys will eventually be given their outright release?
No, settlement for each. In fact, yesterday, Carrick Wheatball, who was waived injured a couple of days before to make room for DeAndre Torrey. You remember when the Eagles brought in the running back, he was actually released off IR after he cleared waivers with an injury settlement. So these 3 guys are more in the Carrick Wheatball category than the Noah Ellis category, who was the guy who, was on the non-football injury list, and the Eagles got him through waivers, and they seem to be keeping him. It's still early in the process. I mean, they could still be working on a settlement, but typically in these types of situations, remember, for the Eagles, if they wanted any of these players, they're done. They're done for the year. When you're placed on injured reserve in the preseason, that's it. You're done. So it's not like they can come back at some point, where if you make the 53 and then you put somebody on injured reserve, then you have all those liberalized rules where guys can come back after 4 games, and it's a lot easier than it used to be. These guys would be completely out for the year. So this will be injury settlements abounding for these particular guys. And, maybe you pay them for a couple more weeks and that type of thing.
2 things on that front. Number one, for any Eagle fans who are out there wondering, how does this affect their salary cap situation? Doesn't, because of the top 51 rule. None of these players are in the top 51. So it's just a couple extra bucks out of Jeff Lurie's pocket. And in case you didn't know, Jeff Lurie and all Philadelphia Eagle owners, all 31 of the other owners of the NFL teams, doing okay. No one's going to have to start a GoFundMe page.
Well, they might still want to start it, but yeah, they're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Rich people like money, but that's another conversation.
Don't really need to give Jeff a helping hand there. He'll be all right to write those checks. This is a roster question I should know, but I don't, so I turn to my expert. is there a max number of guys that you can actually have on the IR before the season starts? Or can you just happen to load up on them, luck of the draw, whatever, you get them through and you do like the player and you want to just have them around for next year, even though we know, as you just explained, they're done for this season. Is there a max number you can put on that list?
No, it's, if you have a bunch of injuries, you can put as many players as you want. But you do have to, there are rules as far as player stashing, which used to be a bigger thing in a different generation. George Allen, for those who go way back, was famous for it with the Washington at the time, a name we cannot say anymore. We can, but you get the point. He was famous for that, stashing guys. You do have to have sort of medical the backing. You got to prove if somebody's on. You can't say, "Oh, Grant Calcaterra has a strained hamstring. We want to put him on injured reserve and stash him for the whole year." You can't get away with that kind of stuff anymore. It's got to be a legitimate season-ending injury. So there is no limit, but it's got to be legitimate.
And you get the doctors who, but then again, I think you're being kind to the NFL. If you don't think it goes on in part, you're kidding yourself. There are still some guys who, wink, wink, nod, nod, get through that process and end up spending an entire year, even if they could come back at some point. They agreed
where
to.
it really shows up later in the season. If you got somebody on the bottom end of your roster and he has, a sprained ankle or something, and you got 6 weeks left, it's obviously not going to be a 6 week. You can get away with stuff like that. But, and Calcaterra is probably a great example because, it's a hamstring. He's already been out for, what,
A month.
A long time, it seems. That would be a tough sell. So there is a lot of gray area, no doubt about that.
But the Eagles cut down their 3 guys yesterday, so they are at 85. They're taking all 85. Or is anybody staying home? I shouldn't say that. There might be guys who are injured.
The injury list. I mean, it's pretty deep, but no, I don't think. I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. Are they going to take Jason Kelce? Maybe I should have asked that. I don't know. If he wants to go, if he wants to stay home, they'll probably keep him at home. It's probably up to him.
Didn't Nick say the other day that he likes the joint practices on the road because they travel as a team, stay in a hotel, that whole bonding thing he was trying to sell the other day.
Yeah.
Does Jason Kelce really need that?
No. Well, there are certain players above, and he's one of those players. They'll leave it up to him, I would imagine. The other guys, all the injuries, they're all out there watching practice for the most part. Although I haven't seen Javon Hargrave out there. He's got a toe injury. I might have missed him. So there's a couple guys, but I mean, yeah, Kelce would be. I would think they would leave it up to Jason. Do you want to come? Do you not want to come? And knowing Jason will probably want to go. So I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I mean, most James Bradbury left practice yesterday, which was a little concerning. But then, he came out of the injury tent and he watched the rest of practice. He didn't go back in. But if it were serious, they wouldn't let him watch the rest of the practice. So not concerned about that at all. They're pretty healthy, just for the, guys who are dealing with some soft tissue injuries that they're being cautious about. The good news is they haven't had serious injuries, and they'll trump that up as, hey, we game the system, Jody. Yeah. We game the system.
So far, so good. We'll see if it lasts. We still have 2 more preseason games and 4 joint practices to go. And oh my God, the other team will actually be trying to hit you, Coach Sirianni. If injuries abound, well, I guess that would also kind of make his point that, if you're going to play real football, you could really get hurt. Yeah. Speaking of getting hurt, one that I thought was pretty significant coming out of camp last couple of days is Miles Sanders. Hurt again. How many times have we said it about the Eagles' most talented running back? His biggest ability is his availability, and it's not always there. Something always seems to crop up that takes Miles out of the mix. Where he sits right now, where we sit 20 some odd days before the first regular season game in Detroit against the Lions. Give me Miles' overall status as a guy who, always seems to get hurt. And the Eagles at the running back position, not a position of great depth here. When I say depth, I mean just at 85 guys. You can have guys that are in camp going to be able to play. Huntley as many carries as he got in the first preseason game. Are the Eagles right now staffed well enough at the running back position in your eyes?
I don't think they are. And that's one of the positions where I think you might see something via whether it's trade or waiver wire when things get cut to 53. I find it very hard to believe they're only going to keep three. Just from, as you mentioned, Miles has a history. You got to be aware of it.
Yep.
And he's already got a hamstring, and you're going to try to get through 17 games with three backs. And oh, by the way, Kenny Gainwell has not been impressive in this camp at all. So for those assuming he's going to push Miles Sanders, ain't happening. I'm interested to see if they keep going down the road of he's the hurry up back, he's the third down back at all times, because Miles caught the football in the opener. Now, granted, it doesn't mean anything, but he caught it, and that's an improvement. And he's just a more dynamic player when he's out there. So I'm interested to see how that shakes out. And Boston Scott's back from the concussion. I'm not as concerned with that. Still limited as he goes through the protocol, but he'll be fine. And he's a good player, and he's somebody you can count on as a backup. But yeah, I mean, I'm not even concerned from a goal line standpoint, other than, if it pops up like it did last year and you have to play Gardner Minshew a game or two, then you need a goal line back. You need a short yardage back. What if Jalen Hurts isn't there? When he's there,
Yeah.
I'm not concerned with it. But when he's not there, that's a big issue for this team. So they could use a Jordan Howard type player. I don't think they want Jordan Howard. I think that's evident. But there's plenty of 225-pound backs out there, and they should be able to find one that's better than what they have.
It's funny. You beat me to the point with Jordan Howard. He's had workouts with several different teams this offseason. I know the Raiders were one of them. I think Pittsburgh. I think he came in and worked out with Pittsburgh. Didn't sign with either one, so he's still sitting out there. You say that, well, it's pretty evident that the Eagles don't want Jordan Howard. Didn't we say the same thing last year? And then all of a sudden they reached out to Jordan Howard. They signed him. He's on the roster. He's carrying the football, and he's making plays for the Eagles. So I'm not going down the road yet of Jordan Howard is out of the mix.
Well, they signed him. I'm going to try to look it up real quick here. Last year, they signed him. I can't find it. I'll have to work in the break. But they signed him late, but they signed him in the off season. I mean, they didn't sign him in training camp. They didn't sign him in season. He was part of this team throughout
from day one of camp. I thought it was a camp signing.
No, he was here from day one of camp. He was here the entire time, and he was on the practice squad. That's what happened, because they changed the rules of the practice squad,
right? No,
where
I knew that.
you could have bets on the practice squad, and then he got elevated when they needed him after Miles Sanders got hurt. But he was here the entire time.
Maybe it was after spring practice.
You're thinking of it was after spring, but you're probably thinking of when he left from Miami and then they brought him back. If he was terrible in Miami the year before.
I'm thinking of last year, and you'll find the exact date. But I thought they'd already arrived at camp when they decided to reach out and re-sign him. But if you tell me it was before that, I'll believe you. But see if you can find out that exact date. So we are further along than they were last year. But they're also, I think, a little shorter at the running back position this year than they were last
Well, they
year.
definitely are because they don't have that big back presence, and they need it, to be honest. And it's, Kennedy Brooks is. I don't think Jason Huntley did much to help his cause against the Jets. Uh, I don't know if other people saw it in a different way. Maybe his ability as a kickoff returner helps a little bit. Um, I'm trying to look it up as I'm talking. April 7th is when the Eagles signed Jordan
Okay.
Howard. And
Yeah.
same day as they signed Eric Wilson, April 7th.
Oh, really?
So pretty early in the process, actually. They re-signed him to a 1-year deal. So he was here for spring work and training camp, and then he got put on the practice squad. So it is a lot different this year.
Yeah, I knew he got elevated from the practice squad, but I actually thought it was like a July signing. You're telling me it was April. And yes, Boston Scott has become the forgotten guy, but that was the same position he was in last year. Because I remember in camp, people going, "Well, Howard's going to be ahead of Boston Scott," and then Boston Scott had as good as productive a season, even more so down by the goal line. And for Boston Scott, you can basically put him in mothballs until the end of the season because he's got to play the 2 games against the Giants. That's all he does. He scored touchdowns against the Giants, but they don't play the Giants till week 14 or week 18. So Boston, please don't get hurt between now and then.
It's a nice luxury to have Boston Scott because he is. I compare him to a utility player in baseball, and everybody's like, "Well, utility players, and maybe not in the new era, but in our era, Jody, in baseball, there was sort of that was an ability. Certain guys you can't play certain guys once a week. They lose, they can't come off the bench, and they can't do it. And it's just they might have more talent, but they can't deal with not playing all the time and get into a rhythm. There's something to say that's a legitimate trait, and Boston Scott has proven to be good at it. In the fact that they can just break the glass, and here comes Boston. Usually it's against the Giants, but he's. I'm not as concerned about. I'm more concerned about Kenny Gainwell because I do not think he's had a good camp, and I think a lot of people just penciled him in and said he's a good player and he's going to be this and he's going to be that. Maybe it's the case, but I could see the Eagles getting a little bit worried because he hasn't been what they thought he was going to be in that jump from year 1 to year 2.
John McMullen, I'm Jody McDonald. That makes this the Mac and Mac Birds 365 show on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Do us a favor. If you're watching right now, you've streamed on in, hit the like button. Give your boys a little helping hand here. We appreciate when you do that. Helps out with our algorithm, whatever that means. We will, via the algorithm, figure out how to get the most out of our next guest. He's going to be a regular contributor. Johnny Mac will be doing spots down on his show, down the Jersey Shore, and we're going to get Mike Gill to hop in with us once a week. It is time for a Mike Gill appearance. He joins us next here on Birds 365.